Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Film Room podcast. This is season 2, episode 6. I'm your host, Joe Baress, once again joined by my co-host, Joby Fawcett. Joby, how we doing?
Well, Joe, I'm doing quite well. I have a more important question, and that is, how are you after your vacation away from the frantic sports world during the fall sports season?
Well, I can't hear very well because I've been to 3 concerts last week and another
Joe,
one
that
tomorrow.
is not encouraged behavior,
No.
even when you're on vacation.
Right. No, that's true. But the good news is I have earplugs. So it at least saves my ears. Other than that, I don't know.
Well, Joe, let's just hope you can make it through this podcast and hear the outstanding interview we're about to conduct with our Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week.
Exactly. That is, Joby just raised the bar on you, Will. We are joined by our Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week, Will McPartland from Scranton Prep football. Will, how we doing, man?
Good. I'm excited to be here. I appreciate all the exposure and thanks for bringing me on.
Thanks, man. We appreciate you joining us. Just to get
Joe, by the way,
yes,
this was probably one of the easier Athlete of the Week votes we had.
True.
In recent memory. But
That's
continue.
true. That's true. So to tell everyone, in case you missed it, playing his first game after returning from a knee injury suffered last season, the senior quarterback rallied the Cavaliers from a 24-point deficit in the third quarter to a 49-44 victory over Delaware Valley. He ran for 180 yards and 5 touchdowns and passed for 228 yards and 2 scores. That's an insane stat line.
Joe, your Holy Cross math will tell you that's accounting for 7 touchdowns.
That's 7 touchdowns. So let's start right there, Will. I mean, not to start individually, but that is a heck of a stat line coming off, obviously, your knee injury from last season. I mean, what did you think of your performance in such a big game and such a big comeback, all of it? What did you think of your performance?
Yeah, I was happy with it, especially because we won in the end. It was looking a little rough at points, but I'm glad we rallied, and then, my teammates kind of got me up, and then that kind of led everyone else in the right direction. But I'm happy with how I played, and I'm glad my knee didn't hold me back in any way.
So, Will, you and I talked a little bit in the summer, and we're kind of part of a fraternity no athlete wants to be a part of, having torn our ACLs. And at the time in the summer, you thought maybe you'd be able to be back for week 1. You were on trajectory to do that, but I thought it would have been wise, and I'm not a doctor or a physical therapist, but just to get yourself right, get yourself ready. How difficult was it when you found out you couldn't go, probably for the first couple of weeks, and then that extended on into a 3-week layoff, and the team got off to a little bit of a slow start? That had to be extremely stressful on you mentally.
Yeah, it was tough. Especially week 1 with how the rivalry is between Prep and Valley View. It was pretty hard, but at the end of the day, I knew that, I couldn't really do anything and it was out of my control, but it definitely hurts knowing that maybe I could have changed the game a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. Let's stick with that, Will. I mean, obviously, thankfully I never had to experience it, but take us through a little bit, what it was like coming back from that injury, the process, just everything.
Yeah, so I tore my ACL in our state playoff game last year against Northwestern Lehigh, and at first, didn't really know what it was. I had a meniscus surgery my sophomore year, but I was back in a month, so it was a quick turnaround. So I was kind of just hoping at worst it was something like that, and then we went to the doctor, got an MRI, and they told me that I did have the ACL and I was going to need surgery. So after that, I knew I had a long road ahead, and I got the surgery. Thankfully it all went well, and then it was just physical therapy 3 days a week from there. And 9 months later, I was ready to play.
So, Will, for fans out there that probably don't realize it during the course of this fall sports season, you are an extremely talented lacrosse player, and I believe you've committed already to Fairfield to continue your lacrosse career. So the torn ACL certainly put you on the sideline during lacrosse season, so you already had to endure that. So coming into the summer, working out and having missed already your lacrosse season, tell me about the motivation. Tell me about the work you put in to be able to get ready for this senior football season.
Yeah, so lacrosse season didn't really end the way everyone was hoping when we lost in our district championship game. So, from that point on, I knew that this is my last year playing football, and my senior year, it's my last time playing with all my friends. So I'm just gonna put my best foot forward. I'm gonna, really do all that I can in the off season, and then the summer getting back in shape, and then just really learning the offense because it's really my first year playing quarterback. So I knew I needed to get in the right headspace and then also get back in shape. And, I had all the motivation I needed to get that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Will, obviously last year you had Lewis Baress playing quarterback, obviously a great quarterback in the area. He also obviously, unfortunately, suffered an injury as well, which ended up ending his athletic career in high school. But what's the transition been like, not only with the injury, but taking over for someone like a Lewis Baress at quarterback?
Yeah, it's big shoes to fill, but me and Lewis having the same injury, we went to therapy together, and over the course of those 9 months that we were in therapy, I kind of learned what it's like to kind of be the quarterback and have like having to control the huddle, and I learned so much from him in those 9 months of therapy, and I give him a ton of credit for that. But it's not easy. It's definitely not easy, especially all the stuff he did off the field. He was such a good leader, and he kept everyone in check all the time. So on the field, it's a lot. It's a lot of studying, looking at your plays, going over stuff, and just talking with my offensive coordinator, Coach Bill. So we had a lot of conversations over the summer of kind of where the bar is at and where I need to be and what I need to do when I get back. But all the credit goes to Lou. He taught me, he showed me what it's like to be a leader and how you should carry yourself while you're playing quarterback.
So, Will, I'm glad you brought up Coach Bill Pascalicchio because he is an outstanding offensive coordinator. But I found it funny because Lewis Baress was at the practice that I was at in the summer, and you were participating in all the non-contact drills, learning the offense from the quarterback perspective and kind of working on the timing with the receivers and the backs and the execution of plays and reading of defenses and whatnot. But Lewis made a funny comment to me in looking at Coach Bill's call sheet and how complicated it looked to him now that he was looking at it from a different perspective. So for you coming into your first year as the starting quarterback, how intimidating was that to see? He is extremely organized. He's got some color coding going on there on that sheet. It looks like a Denny's menu.
Yeah, it's not easy to play for Coach Bill. He knows what he's talking about, and he wants it done his way. But you listen to what he says, and you do what he says, and you work hard enough. You fit into that role pretty easily. And after you get comfortable back there, like I did just throughout the summer, and put in extra work, you fit in really easily. And then once you understand it, that confidence just keeps getting bigger and better. And then that's where I feel like I'm at, and that's why I feel like I played pretty well on Friday.
Yeah, getting back to that game on Friday, you're down 31-7. I mean, it's how did you guys, like, obviously, we know the plays and everything, but how did you guys stay in that game enough against a great Delaware Valley team, as they always are? They're a great program. How did you guys stay in that game and, just kind of have the mental fortitude to get through and somehow win that game?
Yeah, so the locker room's pretty rough. Everyone was down, but my coaches went in there and said, look, we could obviously easily score 3 or 4 touchdowns in a half. So, believe it or not, we were kind of down in the locker room and quiet, but, after they scored that first touchdown, I feel like that kind of woke us up, and that showed us that, listen, we can either let them run it up and lose by 60, or we can, put our foot down and at least try and close the gap and make it look like it was a close game. But, the seniors and a lot of the guys that play for us, we huddled up and we were like, listen, we're losing, but we're just going to go out here and just have fun and just play for each other. And, one thing led to another. And then, we ended up having a pretty good comeback.
So, well, look, this program at Scranton Prep since, in the last decade or so has really kind of elevated itself to one that is so respected on the district and state levels. Okay. And anytime you're facing a deficit like that, 31-7, I think that's a great credit to the character that this team showed, because you could have said the sky was falling. Here we're 0-3 after what was a very difficult first 3 weeks. But somehow, once the ball got rolling, you felt almost, I would think, an obligation to represent the program. In the huddle, what was it like for you and your teammates as things started to go, as the ebb and flow of the game started toward your direction?
In the back of my mind in the huddle and stuff, and even off the field, I know that wearing that prep uniform, it means something, and it's almost disrespectful if you go out there and just, if we went out there and just kept getting, the score was just getting worse. We were playing bad. So, it's almost a respect thing for the people that played before us and for our coaches who have coached for so many years and put in so many hours. So, we just took that in the back of my mind. I know that I wasn't going to go down without a fight. And then, once that confidence kind of catches fire with everyone, so it got us back into the game.
Absolutely. And, getting this victory at this point in the season, just how important was this game for the team?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, we kind of had this game circled almost because, we knew, Valley View didn't really go our way. We hoped for a different outcome there, but we knew with Loyola and Canisius that they were both two really talented teams, and that, not that we were going in planning to lose, but we knew that there was a good chance that, they were going to be a learning curve for us and just kind of show us where we're at. So we kind of had DV circled, and knowing that I was going to come back for DV most likely, I kind of had that game circled too. So we knew once we got there that this was the game that we needed to turn things around and kind of get our season back on track, because I don't like being 0-3, and I don't think anyone on the team does. So this was our game that we kind of set the tone for the rest of the year.
So, Will, for many fans who may not know, your dad was a very accomplished high school football player at Scranton Prep as well. I remember him being a very physical football player who went on to play at the University of Miami and had an opportunity to play in the, he could have played in the NFL as well. He was that talented a football player. But how much advice have you sought from him through all the ups and downs of your athletic career at Scranton Prep, both during football and lacrosse season?
A ton, for sure. So just coming from his pure experience, he knows what it's like. I'm not sure, but I don't think his prep teams were like all that good. But I just know that, he tells me every time you go on that field, if you're leaving something behind, and just every time you go out there, just kind of leave it all out there, because once it's all like said and done, you can't change that. And he has a lot of good things, because he's won big games, he's lost big games, so he just kind of always knows what to say, and whatever happens, he's always got my back. So it's nice to always have him.
Absolutely. And kind of an extension of that, you're now playing alongside both of your brothers on the team. What is it like being on the same team with your brothers?
There's no feeling like it, especially Tato having a more central role this year. He really stepped up. I'm proud of everything he's doing. But, going out there and running zone in the backfield with my brother Braden, there's no feeling like it, because I know that no matter what, whoever has the ball, we're going to go full speed, and that, I can fully trust him, and we just have that chemistry and that bond off the field. And I'm excited for Braden and Owen to have that connection too, because Owen's young right now. He's not getting a whole lot of playing time, but I know that like when he gets older and grows up a little bit, him and Tato are going to be the same way.
Listen, Owen may be young now. He's a talented football player. Will, I've seen him in action. He's got some pretty good instincts. Now, listen, your return was much anticipated. The entire area is certainly, even though the teams are competitive within the Lackawanna Football Conference, fans knew of your injury, and certainly we're happy to see you back. You received some great support through social media. How important is that for a guy like you who kind of has played so hard, and you see that even fans from other schools were happy that you were able to get back out there on the field?
Yeah, it means the world, especially because I see that, and it's from a lot of people that I don't really know or have a connection with, and just to see that, they have my back, even if they aren't affiliated with Prep or have people at Prep, that they still sympathize over my injury and stuff like that, and they know when I'm going through it. It really means the world.
Yeah, I know that you had a great junior football career, and a lot of the Lakeland parents were sending some well wishes your way over the weekend, so that was a big thing. But well, how do you build off this momentum now? Obviously, you needed something. The team needed something. No matter how well the team was playing moving forward, Canisius was a terrific effort by everyone. You still fell short, and it's always hard to keep encouraging and working hard when you're losing. So now this means a lot, I would think, for you moving forward within the Lackawanna Football Conference Division One.
Yeah, so first off, it's a huge confidence boost, because knowing that Delaware Valley is one of the more talented teams in the area, and they've had a solid program. Just knowing that, we can come back from almost a 30-point deficit and come back and win against those guys. It just shows that, that we can play with anyone in this area. And, I think it's especially good for the younger guys, because they haven't really seen success, like I have. I've been blessed with two very talented classes above me. So they definitely pushed me in the right direction. I've only been a part of their success. So the younger guys, they started getting down on themselves, and even some of the older guys. But that win definitely showed them where we are and kind of showed them who we are and how the rest of the season should go, and that, we have good things ahead.
Absolutely. Will, one thing reading your Athlete of the Week interview that you do with our colleague Scott Walsh is that we always ask favorite sports teams, and I find it really interesting that you're a New York Yankees fan, a New England Patriots fan, and a Philadelphia 76ers fan. Obviously, all those they're local-ish teams, and I get it, but it's an interesting combination of cities. How did you become a fan of all those teams?
So growing up, I always liked Tom Brady. That's why I wear 12. So
Okay.
Growing up watching Tom Brady, I was always a huge fan. So that's where the Patriots comes in. And then, if I'm being honest, I'm a big lacrosse guy. As you guys know, I'm going to play lacrosse in college. So when he asked for my favorite team for baseball, I just kind of said whoever I could. Basketball, growing up, we always went to a 76ers game in the winter. So that's where I kind of got my 76ers fan from.
Gee, well, you've always been, over the course of your high school career, one of my favorite interviews and one of my favorite guys to follow. Now I learned your favorite player was Tom Brady. Oh, yeah.
Oh, God.
But you don't know that I'm a Rams fan, okay? And I always have to, Tom Brady ruined 2 Super Bowl experiences for me, and I really, those are hard to overcome when you're looking from the outside looking in, okay? And I can appreciate all that he accomplished, but the 2 losses the Rams suffered at his hands, they're never going to go away, Will.
Yeah, it's not fun to lose, especially when Tom Brady lost to the Eagles.
Yeah, that must have been hard for you, right?
Yeah, all my friends gave it to me there, but it's always fun.
Yeah. So Will, tell me actually quickly, like, What lacrosse do you watch? Do you watch like college lacrosse or anything? What do you watch lacrosse wise?
In season, I definitely watched a lot more college, especially because Fairfield had a really good season this year. I'm excited in the direction they're going, and I can't wait to go up there. But it started with watching them, and then once the tournament comes around and the playoffs are, lacrosse, college lacrosse it's so exciting and it's fun to watch. And then even the PLL is on ESPN for the first time this year, so I got to watch a little bit of that too. But college was definitely more fun for me to watch, and it was exciting this year.
Absolutely. And one more thing from me, Will. Obviously, you talked about you're going to play at Fairfield next year. Just take us through that decision. Why'd you end up picking Fairfield?
So when the recruiting window opened up, they reached out, and I had a good talk with their defensive coach, and it just went really well. And I feel like a lot of our values and kind of our mindset clicked. And so when I went up there for my visit, I just liked everything I saw and everything they had to offer, and I felt like it was the right fit for me. And now this year, I know some of the seniors who went there this year who are freshmen, and they have nothing but good things to say. So that did nothing but make me more confident in my decision.
Well, I wish you the very best. Well, I can't wait to see you play football this season, and it's going to happen soon here in the next couple of weeks. But it's always great to see a fellow torn ACL guy get back on the field. I wasn't quite as fortunate as you, only because I was very lazy the last time that I did. I did mine twice, by the way, and the second time I had enough, so the rehab was way too hard. And I admire you for getting back to where you're at, and I can't wait to see you play. And I also enjoy when I see you play lacrosse as well. You're a heck of an athlete, and you certainly earned this Athlete of the Week award. I was following while I was covering the Abington Heights Valley View game, and I could not believe every couple of minutes it was Will McPartland again. Will McPartland again. I just genuinely felt very good for you and happy for your family because they've gone through it with you, and it was a good night for you. So congratulations.
Thanks, Effie.
Thanks for joining us, Will. We appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me.
All right, that was Will McPartland of Scranton Prep football, our Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week. Joby, I think if you could, I know that you may have talked about it before, but you had mentioned, how happy you were, to see him succeed. And of course, who wouldn't be? But, coming at it from your perspective of having to come back from an injury like that, I'm always fascinated at the fortitude of, trying to get back on the field, just not only physically, mentally, everything. You hate to see it happen, but you also love to see, the people as people able to overcome something like this and get back on the field.
Yeah, Joe. So first and foremost, it is a devastating injury.
Yeah.
Again, I suffered my first one in was the summer of 1988, and they used to repair it with a chisel and screwdriver back then. So
I was going to say that too. Good point.
Yeah, the rehab the first time around when I did, and you have to remember too, I had to compound the situation by being a freshman at Lafayette College. So you have to do that transition and deal with all the social stresses that brings. And then you're driving out to rehab, as Will said, 3 times a week. And, you have that 9-month calendar and you're crossing off days, and, every couple of weeks, your trainers will say to you that you're doing quite well. You're ahead of schedule. And then before you know it, that 9-month calendar is right to the day. I mean, it's just no matter how far ahead of the game you think you are or how well you think you're doing, you really need to kind of follow suit with that 9-month rehabilitation for that injury to be 100%. And then, I played my sophomore year at Lafayette, and it was an extremely challenging year for me. One, the injury did decrease the one part of my game that was my advantage, and that was my speed.
Yeah.
It was I never quite got back to being as fast as I was as a freshman. I did play the entire year. Now, I suffered the actual second torn ACL in the second game of my sophomore year against Holy Cross, but it was to the point where I was playing with an injured knee anyway, so I kind of played through the remainder of that season. I couldn't do any more damage and was going to be reevaluated after the season. And after the season was over, I had shown such good progress that the belief was, if you just strengthen the muscles around it, you can probably have a great collegiate career and then actually participate in spring ball with no problems. And, right before the start of my junior year, I failed my physical, and they said, the only way we'll pass you is if you have the ACL repaired. And by the time that surgery was done, it was in August or early September, 9 months, maybe I would be back for the start of my senior year. And it was just too much for me. And the word you mentioned, Joe, was having fortitude. I had no more left to give.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a hard injury. It's a mentally straining injury. It's always something that you think about, unfortunately.
Yeah.
When you're playing, you don't think about it that much, but you do, you will have, thoughts about it after a game or, any kind of, you sometimes wonder, am I too careful? Am I paying attention? And plus Will is wearing a brace now. That's something he has to get used to as well. And
right.
So there are a lot of things involved, but I will say this, Joe, these young athletes today, they're so big and so strong before they suffer these injuries.
Yeah.
That they do a great job of coming back, and they oftentimes come back, as strong or as fast and as they were before. And that's a real credit to them and the advancements in the rehabilitation from that injury. So I really give Will a lot of credit to have that kind of performance in his first live contact after the injury. It really is. It was an incredible performance for him.
Right, exactly. That's what I was going to say. And it's just, and you mentioned something that, when I used to come back from a non-consequential injury, like a sprained ankle or something, like, I would be favoring it on the basketball court and not trusting it. It's just like to come back from a torn ACL, like just what it takes to get back on that field. And for him to have, I must repeat the stats, 180 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns, 228 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns in your return game from an ACL tear.
And Joe, as we pointed out, that was against Delaware Valley. That's not against,
Right. It's one of the top, obviously had been one of the top programs in the area.
Joe, what a pivotal game in the season for both of those programs, because both teams started 0-3 with the challenging schedules that they had put in front of them.
Yep.
Okay. And neither team could afford a fourth
Right.
loss. Scranton Prep has a little more, leverage in Class 3A. Delaware Valley is going to make the playoffs likely in Class 5A, but you're going to end up being on the road
Right.
for those games.
Right.
So, and even as players, Joe, how often do you want to keep going out there and giving the effort in practice and putting in the time and the film study and
right.
with the results continually being unfavorable for you? And those athletes at Delaware Valley have a great deal of pride, and certainly the kids at Scranton Prep, as they showed, have a great deal of pride. Neither one wants to be 0-4, but now that clearly lifted Scranton Prep to a huge comeback victory. And then Delaware Valley now really has to do some soul searching. And I know those kids. I got a chance to know several of them this summer. And I know the coaching staff there quite well, Coach Keith Olsemer and Coach Nick Valia from the track team. And they're going to do everything they can to get this thing going in the right direction. But boy, it's an uphill climb at 0-4. And there's still some very worthy opponents left on the schedule for Delaware Valley.
Yeah, exactly. And, like you said, in Class 5A with a team right now, Abington Knights, that's 4-0 and really, really clicking. you were at the game against Valley View that Abington Heights won 45-7. This is I don't know if they needed to make a statement, but this seemed like a statement win, Joby, for Abington Heights at this point in the season.
Joe, I go into every high school football season with the same sort of mentality when I'm trying to project how teams are going to be. Now, there are a lot of factors involved in that, but one that stands out head and shoulders that goes in the analytic positive is when you return a starting quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Scranton Prep, clearly when Will McPartland returned, you get that steady, athletic, successful kid playing the quarterback position. You can see how quickly he can turn a game around. Okay. Abington Heights, clearly with Nick Bradley, two-time all-region quarterback, despite the fact that the team graduated its top two receivers, both outstanding all-region talent kids in Sean Theodore and Shane Brower. When you have the leadership, and in addition, Abington Heights' offense graduated its entire offensive line. When you have that kind of leadership and that skill set that Nick Bradley brings to the table, it just oozes confidence within the team. The defense is really good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Very athletic, very intense. And while they thought it was going to take a little bit of time for the offense to click, it has now gotten its legs underneath it. And I mean that in the sense that Nick Bradley is now running and throwing the ball with extreme confidence in his receivers and in his line. And that's what we saw on Friday night against a Valley View defense, which has been one of the top 5 ranked defenses in the conference. So it was an impressive performance indeed, and it helped set up what we love in the media, Joe. Number 1 North Pocono at number 2 Abington Heights on Saturday this week.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. That's gonna be a fun game. Joby, obviously on Friday, I was at the Battle for the Bell, Scranton versus West Scranton.
Great coverage, by the way, Joe, by you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. This is obviously, it's always a big game. The kids love it. This was big since back in the day when I was going to football games with Bishop and not having a football team. So, this was just a game that Scranton played pretty flawlessly, obviously winning 51-6, retaining the bell for, I believe, the 7th straight time. I don't think West Scranton has won the game since 2018, but there were some things, there were some players that really got it going, and then a lot of contributions throughout. One who I believe you named your defensive player of the week in the LFC weekly awards that are in Tuesday's paper every Tuesday. Well, I spoiled it depending on when people listen to this, but that will be out in tomorrow's paper.
So that's certainly okay to promote the awards that will be unveiled in the morning.
Absolutely, that's true. So Keith Johnson had a really nice game. It's kind of a game where you don't exactly see it in the stats, but he had a big 4th and 1 run. I believe he ran for 14 yards, took it to the West Scranton 8. That really got the offense kind of moving and giving Scranton the momentum. Brody Coyle ends up running it in on a bootleg to give Scranton an early 7-0 lead. And later on, Johnson is able to force a fumble and jump on the fumble to give Scranton the ball at midfield. And that's when Kamani Sterling came into play, catching a big time pass in the middle of the field and taking it into West Scranton territory for a big gain on 3rd and 17. And they kept feeding him, and he had another 22-yard run to get it to the 1, and then he finished it off with a touchdown run. And then there were just plenty of plays from many people, which you come to expect from, honestly, a team like Scranton at this point. Brody Coyle, as I mentioned, interestingly, I don't want to say quietly, but it's like you look at the stats at the end of the game, 11 for 16, 134 yards, and a touchdown, and 16 carries, 45 yards, and 2 touchdowns rushing. And that was I don't think he played in the fourth quarter. So that's another nice game for him. And John Mrazek was able to get a touchdown run and an interception. And Ian McAndrew as well gets a 49-yard touchdown run late in the game. Coyle threw it to 5 receivers. Chris D'Alessandro caught 4 catches for 53 yards to lead the receiving core there. That was really my takeaway. It was just big time game for Scranton, and it's a big deal for these kids, and they really showed up.
Yeah, Joe. So the Bell game has such great tradition,
Mm-hmm.
and so I every year I kind of dedicate Game Face to that game.
Right.
And I had an opportunity, as I do for Game Face, I visit the school where I'm going to do the feature on, and Scranton was practicing, and then West Scranton was going to practice after Scranton. They both work out there at Scranton Veterans Memorial Stadium, so I had an opportunity to watch a little bit of Scranton's practice, and then talk to Nick Puma Brown, and then Cameron Cole, who joined us for the interview and the video and photo shoot, then went to his practice. So I watched a couple of minutes of West practice. And look, both programs work extremely hard toward this game. It means a lot to the players. Okay. If Scranton and West Scranton seasons conclude without some sort of a division championship or a district championship, this is the most important moment or memory of their football careers.
Right.
Okay. And certainly of their football seasons. So it does mean a lot to these kids. And that Bell Trophy means a lot to the kids. And it means a lot to the players who came before them. So that trophy will be displayed not as soon as they fix it, because apparently it suffered some damage.
Yes, it did.
afterwards. But when they fix it, I'm sure Ted Anderson was there with a screwdriver and wrench.
You know it.
Trying to put it back together with some silly putty. But anyway, it will be displayed in the school until next year. Okay, so it's an important game. It's a fun game.
Yep.
And I think kids from both teams play hard. Scranton, I think, has a team that was extremely motivated after a very, very disappointing performance against Pocono Mountain East the week before.
Right.
Also, Coach Steve Shumbres was kind of forced to use a lot of different weapons in his offensive attack because, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, Reese Whitman could not play.
Correct, yes.
So he's been really the focal point of the offense to this point, and so other players were involved, and you kind of start getting that energy throughout the whole team. And I watched a little bit of that game online, Joe, on the live stream before I headed out to my ball game, and I just thought, it was competitive early, and Scranton just had a little bit more and wore West Scranton down and kind of piled on from there. But it is a big game. It's a traditional rivalry game that we are so desperate to have in this area that we need to kind of feel, get this the spirit and the interest generated here in the area. So a great performance by Scranton, and let's see what they can do as a team to kind of keep that going in the right direction heading into this big game this weekend against Scranton Prep.
Joby, it was funny. I'm sure I know you've experienced this. Sorry. I was an idiot. As the game ended, I run over to the bell with, the players and the cheerleaders are around it. And I just start taking some video of the celebration. And all of a sudden I realize that every single Scranton fan that's there is behind me running toward the bell.
Joe, you didn't have to get tackled, did you?
I thought I was going down, Joby. I thought I was going down, but I thank all the fans who did not accidentally run into me at all. They avoided me.
Great footage, Joe. You did a great job covering that game. You really did. No, it's important for our listeners and people who are subscribing to the Times-Tribune.com and reading the print product to check out some of the video highlights you're putting together, because we are giving this digital format, the content that we want people to see that you don't normally expect from newspaper reporters. Okay, we're kind of branching out to a different dynamic and a different option for our media content, and I thought you did a great job with that post game.
Absolutely, thank you, Joby. I appreciate it, and you as
And it's
well.
not easy to do, Joe, with the people,
No,
and the student body, and you want to make sure you're not getting trampled and you're getting what you need.
it's true. It's a fact. So yeah, that was the Bell game, and one other game I just want to touch on quickly, Joby, is this. Lackawanna Trail defeated Dunmore 30-28. This was obviously one of the premier games of the weekend. Obviously another great performance from Isaac Ryan on Lackawanna Trail. Great performances by both teams, Weston Unoni as well on Dunmore's side. And it just stinks that a game like that has to, be decided by a punt going out of the back of the end zone, punt snap. But, these are two good teams, and, it's a great win. It's a great win for Trail. And I kind of feel a little bad for Dunmore, whose two losses have been 2 points and 3 points in overtime against Riverside.
Yeah. So, Joe, I know Dunmore coach Kevin McHale quite well, as you know, and I have a great relationship with Lackawanna Trail coach Steve Jervis. And each one will tell you, I'm sure, there are 3 phases to the game.
Yep.
Offense, defense, and special teams. And that's terrible coach cliche, and nobody wants to use it, but the facts are the facts. And so whenever you have 2 teams that are that equal, okay, and they are just beating the heck out of each other. And I spoke with our former colleague and my dear friend Herb Smith,
right,
and he said it was a heck of a battle. It was just so intense and so physical, and those games are often decided, Joe, by the most minuscule mistake.
Yeah.
Okay? If you go back to the Dunmore Riverside game, Dunmore had the first possession in overtime and was on the cusp of scoring a touchdown, but fumbled
Yep.
to the end zone. Okay, and then that allows Riverside just to kick the field goal for the victory. Okay,
Right.
These are the type of games we like to see. Not necessarily them end that way, but you want to see close, competitive football games. And you could argue, Joe, and I thought about this, I agonized over this. We really had 2 games that were worthy of being the game of the week this week.
Yes.
And this one certainly lived up to its billing. You have to give credit to Lackawanna Trail's kids, kept responding. We kind of knew, Joe, that Weston Unoni was going to be a very big, impactful player for Dunmore, and certainly would swing the pendulum of in Dunmore's favor offensively. He was that kind of game breaker. Okay, and he certainly has had a huge impact for Dunmore here in the first month of the season. For Isaac Ryan, Joe, we speak so glowingly about him, and he certainly has warranted the attention. But if you look at what he's done in the last 2 weeks, okay, he played against Berwick, which is 4-0 right now, and arguably one of the best defenses in District 2.
Yep.
He had 130 yards rushing in that game.
Right.
And then against Dunmore was giving up, 80 total yards a game?
Yeah. Yep.
He had 165 yards rushing.
Yep.
Okay. So just a great credit to him, the athlete that he is, and to the offensive line at Lackawanna Trail to allow a guy to run for more than 160 yards against that defense. Okay.
Absolutely.
So I think great things are ahead for Lackawanna Trail and Dunmore moving forward.
Definitely.
Dunmore has a big game with Lakeland in a couple of weeks, which I think is going to be a real dandy in that Lackawanna Division II race. And Lackawanna Trail has a very much improved and confident Mid-Valley team this week in what's going to be one of the marquee matchups here in Week 5. So I think both teams are still going to have a lot of success moving forward. And this was a real good evaluation, I think, of what they can accomplish later on in the year.
Absolutely, Joby. Just some other scores, and you stop me if you want to, from last weekend. Carbondale area beat my alma mater, Holy Cross, 45-15.
Carbondale area, Dunmore will be a very good game, I think, this week.
Oh yeah, true. Two 3-1 teams. No, I'm sorry, that's incorrect. I just said 3-1 and 2-2, I believe, or something like that.
Yeah, I still think it's a good game.
Absolutely, absolutely, Joby. We mess up sometimes on this show. Well, me more often. Mid-Valley, Honesdale, 42. Mid-Valley beat Honesdale 42-21.
Mason Banansky, 246 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. He just picked the wrong week.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Listen, it's not Mason Banansky's fault that Will McPartland had 400 yards of total offense and 7 touchdowns.
7 touchdowns. Exactly.
Worthy of being cited. He had a terrific week, and he's been a big part of this comeback, Joe, after Mid-Valley started 0-2. And I think Mid-Valley is now starting to look a little bit like the team I thought would contend for that division championship there.
Absolutely. As you mentioned earlier, North Pocono beat Wallenpaupack 38-13.
Joe, I cannot wait to finally see North Pocono play.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Here it is. North Pocono is the number 1 team in the Times-Tribune high school football poll from the preseason. I have yet to see them play. Now, a lot of that is just matchups and locations and, where they're playing and what the relevance of the game is in the course of the week schedule. But it's going to be old school. A Saturday afternoon game at Comet Stadium, formerly known as the Pit.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a packed house, Joe. I may have to, get there about 9 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. Set up a tent and, get right in.
Joe, before I get too crazy, Enrico Mastriani does a great job, and Joe Repsch, the head coach of Diamond Heights, they're extremely accommodating with trying to get me a parking location close to the stadium whenever they have these big games. It is generally my fault for getting there late. And I do encourage fans, if you are going to the Comet Stadium on Saturday, parking is at a premium.
Exactly.
And, it does have a great old school, high school atmosphere there at the stadium. And it's really neat visually, especially if it's going to be sunny, which according to those very accurate weather people here in Northeast Pennsylvania, we're supposed to be dry and sunny on Saturday. So I would get there early.
Yeah. Just like the people should have gotten there a little early for the Breaking Ben concert this weekend, Joby.
Joe, I understand they'd like a little refund.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame them. I wouldn't blame them at all. Oh God, yeah, I was lucky I had the time to get there early because, my sister was backed up for 3 hours. She was stuck on that road. She got in there.
There have been times I've been backed up for 3 hours and had nothing to do with traffic.
I hear you. So, Joby, we are, after our great interview with Will, we've got about 10 minutes left in the show. We've already touched on.
Joe, we have a lot going on this week. I know you don't know that because you've been on the summer concert tour.
That's right.
So a lot of tennis matches have already been played. We're recording this on Monday. And Thursday this week, we have the big Scranton Prep at Abington Heights girls tennis matchup for the Lackawanna League Championship. Okay. And Joe, I know everybody read my story today to see the very impressive numbers of both of these programs over the last decade.
Well, certainly.
Both teams have been extremely dominant in the Lackawanna League, and that should be a really intense high school tennis matchup. But I also want to congratulate West Scranton coach Devin Scott. So she earned her 75th career win at West Scranton. Okay. And the Lady Invaders are undefeated. Now, they will host Abington Heights on Wednesday. So they still want to have a little bit to say about this Lackawanna League Championship this season. And I think this is the best West Scranton team ever. Okay. And I know that's a bold statement for me to say, but they are on the cusp of school history, program history there with the girls tennis team. It's a real credit to Devin Scott, who's done a wonderful job building this program and getting kind of fueling and lighting the interest within the school district for this program.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Joby. I will say one of our athlete of the week candidates in, obviously a hard luck week to be an athlete of the week candidate with Will having such a big game. Johnny Chillery of Riverside Soccer. He had 2 goals in a 3-0 win over Elk Lake, 3 goals in a 5-1 win over Montrose, 2 goals, including the 50th of his career in the 16-0 win over Forest City. Riverside is 4-0 in Division 3, and so is Old Forge. So that's basically the top of Division 3 right now.
The new Tri-Borough rivalry, Joe.
That's right. On the pitch. So also Nellie Rude or Rudy, I'm not sure. Rude makes more sense. 5 goals, 1 assist, and an 8-3 win over Dunmore. 1 goal, 1 assist, and a 3-0 win over Mountain View. Jaden Anglin of Abington Heights Football, 19 carries, 155 yards, and a touchdown.
So since we're playing the number game like Will McPartland did, Jaden Anglin wears number 26, which is my former number, and he has made a huge difference in that Abington Heights offense this year. He is a talented running back.
Absolutely.
You see some things that, you kind of look twice and say, man, where did he find that crease?
Absolutely.
And the next thing you know, he puts his foot in the ground and he's gone. He's that good.
Right. Absolutely. He also had 2 catches for 15 yards and another touchdown. So yeah, Joby, that's basically where we're at right now.
Joe, really quickly, I don't have my timer here at home, and I just do want to mention, we have to congratulate Mountain View's Addison Kilmer. She committed to East Stroudsburg to continue her basketball career. Okay, she was our Times-Tribune Female Athlete of the Year last year, and she is a 3-sport athlete at Mountain View. Monday night, she achieved her 500th kill of her volleyball career. So congratulations to her on a couple of great milestones in the last 2 weeks.
Absolutely, Joby. So we're coming up on about 5 minutes left here. Joby, you want to go through T's game face a little bit?
So today, Joe, I traveled to Holmesdale High School for what is going to be an extremely emotional story on Friday. I encourage everyone who is a high school football fan to pick up a copy of the Times-Tribune on Friday. The feature is going to be a tearjerker, to say the least. And that's the most I will give for that. I have not written any of it yet. But I will tell you, I was choked up doing the interview. So it's going to be a big one. And of course, we'll have the preview of the big game of the week. Number 1, North Pocono at number 2, Abington Heights on Saturday at 1:00. There are some other good matchups this weekend. We mentioned a couple of them with Dunmore and Carbondale area. And, Joe, we're at the point of the year, we're at the midway point, okay? Mm-hmm. And we'll start to announce and release the district rating points standings coming up here the next couple of weeks. But we're at a tipping point here. If you have playoff hopes or aspirations, you want to start kind of getting your season on track here. And we're going to be within the division playing here within the conference. These games matter. It'll be a lot of fun here in the next 6 weeks.
Definitely, Joby. And, obviously I'm back from vacation. I want to thank you guys for, plugging away while I was gone. It's not easy.
Really missed you. I'm not going to lie to you.
I appreciate that, but thanks for, holding down the fort. Just everybody. It's not easy with a quote unquote full staff, let alone when someone's missing or 2 people.
Scotty Walsh did a yeoman's effort this week, my friend.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Scott Walsh, shout out to him.
He's our Times-Tribune staffer of the week.
Staffer of the week, exactly. I don't think that comes with anything, but we surely appreciate it.
Joey, I might get him a certificate at the end of the year.
You know what? Maybe we should. Maybe we should chip in the Athlete of the Week ceremony.
The only thing I'll have to know beforehand is who he's coached by.
Yeah, absolutely, Joby. Of course.
Just to make sure the the presentation is proper.
Exactly. I expect nothing less. So I'll start to wrap things up here, Joby. Thank you to Will McPartland, our Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week, for joining us. His Athlete of the Week interview will be in tomorrow, Tuesday's paper. It'll also be online where you can find all the content that we have, the Times-Tribune.com/sports. Follow us on X at SportsTT. Follow Joby Fawcett's Times-Tribune Facebook page, which is Joby Fawcett, the Times-Tribune. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, Times-Tribune Sports. Yeah, it'll be another jam-packed week. A lot of sports. A lot going on. Be sure to pick up, as we mentioned, Game Face, which will once again obviously be in Friday's paper, as it always is. Give you a full breakdown of this weekend's football games. And I think that's it, Joby. Bye week for Penn State. So,
well, Joe, they needed a little bit of rest and reevaluation after the very challenging first 3 weeks of the season.
That's right.
And they'll be getting ready for the whiteout against Oregon here after the bye. So that should be a very intense game, to say the least, but I'm sure they'll be well rested.
Absolutely. And Joby, our teams are 2-0. Rams and Packers. You guys.
Joe, and the Rams don't look anywhere near as good as the Packers, but we'll find out what the real record is going to be as the Rams visit the Eagles on Sunday.
Hey, you are what your record says you are at the moment, right?
That's correct.
2-0.
Go for ourselves 1-7.
That's right. Undefeated. Joby, I want to thank you once again for joining me. I'll be talking to you every day, but I'll be talking to you here next week.
Joe, you'll be so sick.